Hey y'all, welcome back to CRxOWN Talks, your weekly dose of health and healing in Black communities. And in 15 minutes or so, we clear up myths about Black health and break down the healthcare questions you wish you'd asked and the ish they should have told you. So last week we started our conversation with school nursing and what that means and who it's for, who it helps, who it impacts. This week we're continuing the conversation with Dr. LaStassia Williams. She has been in school nursing for over 17 years, and now, y'all, she in charge of the girls. Helps lead school nurses in caring for our kids, our students in Texas. So we're glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so we're going to start this episode like we start every one. What's one myth about school nursing that you wish would disappear forever?
Well, probably that we don't do anything but pass out band-aids and ice packs all day. That's so far from the truth. So yeah, I would consider that a big myth.
Yeah, I think most people think about that even from their time as a kid. And if they have any kids, like what they think school nurses do. So let's get into that a little bit. What is a typical day in school nursing?
Well, a typical day it's hard for, to explain that because for school nurses the days look different every day. But for the most part, you could, and it depends on the clinic you're in or the school that you're in. So you may have some nurses who their typical day is meds, cathing students, tube feedings, and then that's not including the injuries that happen on the playground or an anaphylaxis reaction that happened in the cafeteria or the diabetic whose blood sugar is not regulated. So that could be a typical day for some school nurses.
Yeah, so a typical day is atypical. Like anything could happen. You just got to be prepared. There's some things that they do every day in terms of students who are on. Is it what's it called when your parents sign you up to make sure that they have a nurse on site that helps you with certain things?
Well, I know, we have in the buildings a lot of times there are the school nurse, and then some students have private duty nurses that, go everywhere with them. But most of the time, if the parents sign the consent form, the physician signs a consent form where they receive their medication or whatever treatment, then that's usually what's taking place on those days for those particular students.
Okay. So I think a lot about school nursing and maybe the only touch point for healthcare for some Black families. So
Mhm.
how do you think school nurses can help kind of shape health outcomes for Black students and their families?
Mainly is really, kind of, I like to, when I was in the clinic, educating those parents and the students. Because a lot of times when you have minority students, especially if you are in where like I'm working most of the time in the southern sector where there's not a lot of allergy clinics, asthma clinics, those, and you have to go to probably a hospital most of the time. Just educating those parents to let them know, say, hey, you are your child's best advocate, and then teaching those students how to advocate for themselves and knowing that, hey, you have a say so in your health. So a lot of times we just make sure that we're doing a lot of education and making sure that the parents and the students know what's supposed to take place for them for as it relates to their health.
Yeah, that's a good point because if folks don't have either knowledge or access to care, or sometimes they don't even have health insurance, right? Like,
Mhm.
can y'all act as like a bridge to get them into care?
Yeah, sometimes we have resources in the community to where we can um, tell the parents, say, hey, this clinic, they work with parents based on their income, so they might provide a sliding scale pay so that parent can pay, or we may know physicians who offer that. So we try to have list of places where parents can go and access those resources for their students.
Yeah. So another thing I know that school nurses oftentimes are assigned to multiple campuses. So like how difficult is that where you're trying to help people and be available, but you may be here one
Yeah.
day, somewhere else in it?
So that's very difficult. So I'm lucky enough to have a nurse on all of my campuses. But last year I wasn't so lucky where we had turnovers where I was short 3 to 4 nurses. And I know in some states, it's really not, mandatory for them to have a school nurse. And so you have nurses who they might be covering 3 to 4 clinics, which is really difficult because they're not taking into account the emergencies that happen. And so on those times, you're dependent upon people on the campus who are not in the healthcare field to handle some of those emergencies that come up. Because if a nurse is across town and she can't get there quick enough, so we have to train, people that are on the campuses in the front office to kind of handle certain situations until either we arrive or EMTs arrive. Because I can remember being in a couple of school districts where one, I was a nurse for the alternative education program, and I had 2 campuses. And then another one, I was working in another state where I was in, I think that was when I was in Arkansas, and I had 2 campuses. And so I had to split my time, which once you get in a groove on one campus, you're trying to do certain things, and then you're just like, okay, ooh, I have to go. So and then go to the other campus. So it's real difficult to split your time. So I really think every school should have a school nurse because of the type of illnesses and just chronic conditions that we have now.
Right, because like in an emergency, do y'all train teachers or other staff on how like to use the do all campuses have like the AED, the defibrillator device?
Yes, they should. I know here in Texas, we have to have an AED on all of the campuses. But when we're training the front office staff or whoever the principal designates to handle the situations, if the nurse isn't there, we train them on how to handle seizures, and if the kid has diastat and how to give that, or if the kid has really bad allergies, how to give an EpiPen. So we train them on all of those different things just in case something happens. And also with that training, knowing who to contact, how long to wait, those type of things. So yes, that training is done in various aspects. So that's how we handle being on multiple campuses, or even if we're just off the campus.
Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna shift a little bit to now we talked about, Black communities, under-resourced, minority populations, period, right? They often deal with a lot of trauma, whether it's from home, community violence, or interpart bullying or whatever. How do you help students support, like if they're dealing with some form of trauma?
Most of the time, the most important thing that I found is just being that safe space for the student. And a lot of times when students, they're going through things, whether that's outside in the community or it's from home, or even if it's in school with other students, a good majority of the time the nurse is probably going to be their first stop. Because when they're dealing with certain issues or certain things, it manifests as a stomach ache. They're not, talking about what's happening, or it may come as a headache. And when they come in, we begin to ask questions to see, because we have to say, okay, have you eaten? Have you done this? And then when you get down to it, a lot of times we find those other things that are causing that stomach ache. So they're not necessarily sick, but it's something from the outside that is making them have this stomach ache or have a headache. So just being that listening ear for that student and knowing that is the safe space for them.
That's really good, right? Because not often do kids feel like they have a safe space, or there's someone that's going to be like, "Oh, ain't nothing wrong with you. Go back to class."
Mhm.
Or even your parents sometimes might be like, "Your stomach won't hurt when you left the house."
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes we do that. I'm not even gonna tell you the story. Sometimes they come in there and it's like, look, I just saw you. Ain't nothing wrong with you. So, but sometimes we just get that feeling when
Yeah.
they come through, and that's when we start asking those probing questions. And for a lot of those students, you see them in the hallway, you interact with them for multiple years, so how they are and and so
Right.
when something's off, then you like something's not right.
Yeah. So another off topic, but on topic for me. So a lot of my work has been with sexual health and HIV prevention. And we recently, here where I'm from, saw like this one school, kind of like a mini outbreak of HIV in one high school. With a lot of times, especially across the South, you have either abstinence only or abstinence based sexual health education. Like, how do nurses bridge the gap of sexual health promotion, education, HIV prevention, etc.?
Grin and laugh because, some people, they always ask me, say, hey, can you come do this class and sex ed? And I was like, listen, I have 3 habits that I like to do. I like to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And
Right.
if I teach on that, the state of Texas might take my check. So no, I can't teach on that, which is, and I joke about it, but it's sad
It
because
is.
there are a lot of students who would benefit from that. So how I was able to get around that was to pretty much teach on kind of the emotional health side of sex. And
Okay.
although, because I believe it still aligns with abstinence, because I notice a lot of students don't know how to say no. They
Mhm.
feel as if they have to, oh, they're doing this. Oh, I feel like I love him today or I love her today, so I have to do this. And so they don't necessarily know how to say no. So I got around it on teaching on things like that, on teaching about just the hygiene aspect. And if it starts to drift off into, "Oh, what do I do?" and like protection, I'm like, oh no, I can't talk about that. But this is what I can talk about. And many times I find that many of the students appreciate it because nobody has ever addressed them in the way of, they tell them, oh, just say no. Just be abstinent. You don't have to do it. But they don't teach them, like, no, you have a right. And that goes into a whole other, another thing that they just don't know. Like, I don't have to say yes. And they don't realize emotionally you're not ready for that. And so that's kind of how I got around it. It's real difficult though, especially when you're going into a clinic. I've worked in a district where I got a middle schooler, you on your second baby, which is sad, because she on her second baby, because technically she's supposed to be in high school, but she's getting left behind. And so, or you have a student and he's a baby daddy and he's in a baby himself. And
Mhm.
so we have all of these different things going on in our schools, and as nurses, we can't talk about what we really want to, which is what people want to say, hey, use this protection, use that. Okay, although I can't say that, but I can teach you about the emotional health, the hygiene, those type of things.
Yeah. But I think that's powerful too, right? Like, even in the no, because there are a lot of times where somebody wants to say no, but they don't know how. So in just
Yeah.
teaching the how, when, language, and it's okay to say no, I think is beneficial. Now, we do know though, we've been in high school too. So
Yeah.
no is, sometimes you don't want to say no. So I
Right.
think we do have to figure out where do they get that information from, if sometimes the parents are not able, willing, or capable of sharing it. So I think that's a good gap that the school could really address if districts would get on board.
Yeah, and I'll just say it like this. I don't think I'll just speak for where I am in Texas. I don't think we'll ever get to that point. So I always have to be in the mindset of, okay, although I want this to happen, I want to be able to teach this. Okay, I can't.
Yeah.
And so now I have to shift my mind and say, okay, these are the things that I can talk about. And I can also, encourage the students, say, hey, and I tell my students all the time, because I've had students from pre-K all the way up to 12th grade. And so I've had all of them. And I will, tell my students, hey, if your parents can't talk to you or whatever, find a trusted adult and not your friends, because they don't know
Right.
anything either. Right. Y'all, it's blind leading the blind. Y'all traveling the same road. And so, just getting them to at least try to open up to someone other than their peers. And then maybe they can eventually have that open communication with their parents. Some of them probably never will, but at least, trying to sit them down and say, hey, you can, whether it's not in the school, you can, whatever trusted adult you have on the outside, just get some information from them.
That's good. That's good. Now, school nurses, of course, are nurses in general, are mandated reporters.
Mhm.
What does that mean for students and families, and how do you kind of approach that with discretion, care, or whatever?
So being a mandated reporter is just simply that you're obligated to report any kind of abuse, neglect, and a lot of times they really don't want to report things for fear of the person coming and trying to retaliate against them and say, hey, you called CPS on me and my kids, yada yada. But the law says, hey, if you notice any type of neglect or abuse, you have to report it. Some people, and we don't have the liberty of not using our name or anything like that. In the schools, I have to give you my name. Say, hey, I'm such and such from here, and I'm reporting this, and just give them all the information. I've never had a problem personally reporting because my first thing is to make sure that my students are protected.
Yeah.
And if that means a family member or somebody is mistreating them, you better believe I'm reporting it. And I'm gonna give my name and I'm gonna make sure you spell it right because I want to make sure that my students are protected. And so that's just pretty much what being a mandatory reporter is, and just knowing that we have that duty to make that happen.
Well, good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. We're going to flip into like a rapid fire round. So, like, first
Okay.
thing that comes to mind, what is the most used item in the nurse's office?
Thermometer.
The toughest part of the job.
Knowing that we can't help everybody.
Yeah. What's the most misunderstood part of it?
That we can't do everything, being that legally there's some things that we can't do by our license.
What's the fastest you've ever had to spring into action?
Like, you want a time? The fastest. Well, I had a student they were passing out, and we were across the campus, so we had to run across the campus to get to them. And so I think I was able to, I'm an athlete, and back in the way back in the day, so I was able to make it there in about 2-3 minutes.
That's good. What's one resource you think every school should have?
A psychologist.
Yes. And if you can think of, what's a powerful moment of advocacy for a student that you witnessed?
See, this was one. I had a student who they were having issues, dental issues, and in pain. Parent would not take them to the dentist. Would not, for some reason, said that they were, faking. And I'm looking at their gums. It looks like an abscess. And so I called CPS, and now the parent and the cousin came up to the school on me. But it was all good. I was ready, but I made sure that, put it like this, that student received dental care. Every time I called, that parent made sure that they took care of that student.
Because people don't realize, though, that your mouth is a part of your body. And if you have a dental infection, it goes to your brain, especially in kids. But that's another episode. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Dr. Williams. I'm so excited to have this opportunity to talk to you.
I appreciate you for having me on. I love talking about school nursing and, all those different type of things, although we don't get enough pay, but still.
So that's where we're going to close out. We're going to advocate for more school nurses. We're going to advocate for increased pay for them for all that they do. We're going to advocate for them to have one per school so that they're not stretched thin and our students get what they need. We're going to advocate for comprehensive sex education.
Yeah.
And we're going to support our school nurses, okay?
I appreciate that. And I'm pretty sure all the school nurses across this country appreciate that as well.
Yes. All right. So here's your crown check for today. Behind every hall pass, And every health chart is a bigger truth. Our kids' futures are on the line, and our school nurses are at the front of that line. Now, this has been your health check-in with Crown Talks. If you love this, follow Cover Your Crown, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Crown Talks wherever you get your podcast medicine. Consider yourselves Black, healthy, and crowned. Crown secured. We out.